Welcome back, warrior. We are reading First Samuel chapter 3, and the chapter heading says, "The Lord calls Samuel, the house of Eli will not be purged by sacrifices and offerings." Samuel is recognized as a prophet by all Israel. The Lord appears to him. Okay. So here we go. It says the commentary, the word of the Lord then comes, and it comes to Samuel. Okay, imagine if Hannah would have been there to witness this moment, right? Oh, it would have been so sweet. Okay, so verse 1. And the child Samuel ministered unto the Lord before Eli. And the word of the Lord was precious in those days. There was no open vision. I don't know what that all means. Okay, so verse 1, it says that the word of the Lord was precious. This does not mean that there was no revelation at all, but that revelation was precious or scarce. So this is what President Harold B. Lee said. He said, the story commences with a significant statement. And the child Samuel ministered unto the Lord before Eli. And the word of the Lord was precious in those days. There was no open vision. That means there was no prophet upon the earth through whom the Lord could reveal his will, either by personal experience or by revelation. Oh, that's interesting. I guess I didn't really know that. No wonder. Okay, so President Harold B. Lee, but arise and stand upon thy feet, BYU devotional. Oh, that would be like a cool devotional to listen to. Okay. Verse 2. And it came to pass at that time when Eli was laid down in his place and his eyes began to wax dim, that he could not see. And ere the lamp of God went out in the temple of the Lord, where the ark of God was, and Samuel was laid down to sleep, that the Lord called Samuel, and he answered, Here am I. And he ran unto Eli and said, Here am I, for thou calledest me. And he said, I called not. Lie down again. And he went down and lay down. And the Lord called yet again Samuel. And Samuel arose and went to Eli and said, Here am I, for thou didst call me. And he answered, I called not, my son. Lie down again. Now Samuel did not yet know the Lord, neither was the word of the Lord yet revealed unto him. And the Lord called Samuel again. So this time he's a child, and the Lord is calling him. And I think it's so sweet. Like, imagine this situation or scenario, and how Eli must have been like, why is he stalling bedtime? Or like, no, it's fine. Just go to bed. It's like when parents are just like woken up by their kids and you're like, no, don't invent stuff. Just go to bed, right? So, but like, this was like a legit thing for Samuel, like a legit experience he was having. Okay, so verse 8, and the Lord called Samuel again the third time, and he arose and went to Eli and said, Here am I, for thou didst call me. And Eli perceived that the Lord had called the child. Therefore Eli said unto Samuel, Go lie down, and it shall be, if he call thee, that thou shalt say, Speak, Lord, for thy servant heareth. So Samuel went and lay down in his place. Now this would have been so special, right? Okay, so let's see. This is such a wonderful example of how to teach our children to hear the voice of the Lord in their own lives. And they need to be the ones acting upon the revelation, but we can help gently guide them. Okay, Sister Mary R. Durham says that Samuel was beginning to feel, recognize, and hearken to the Lord's voice. But this young boy didn't start to understand until Eli facilitated this recognition. And having been taught, Samuel could become more familiar with the still small voice. End quote. Sister Mary R. Durham, A Child's Guiding Gift, April 2016 Journal Conference. I think this is so important because it is true. It is our job as adults and people who have had more experience listening and hearing the Lord's voice, that when our children experience the Spirit, they don't recognize it right off the bat. So it's our job to say, oh, that was the Spirit talking to you. Or isn't that interesting that the Lord is trying to communicate with you in the way that you can recognize, because he knows that you like this, or that you are like this, or like that you have this skill or talent, right? Like, for example, I think it's like really easy for us to know that when maybe musicians are creating their worship music, that we can know like that they have been guided by the Spirit, because it's like worship music, right? But sometimes we don't realize that like people can be guided to do all sorts of stuff, and not just things that are related to the gospel. So like we can be inspired to help somebody in a specific way that has nothing to do with going to church or singing a church song, or so I'm trying to think of an example. Maybe while you're driving, right, the Spirit can inspire us to maybe stop when it might be weird to stop, or to maybe go a different direction than we normally go, because the Spirit's trying to help us or protect us from something, right? And so, or help us be on a different path, but like so that we can be of service to maybe somebody that's on that path instead. And so it's just, I think, different. And then when I was primary president, we would do testimony meeting for just the little children there. And I didn't like having to tell them what to say, but they always wanted to volunteer to share their testimony. And so, because I don't want to tell them what to say, but I want them to feel what they want to say and then say that. And so I would just ask them questions when they came up to share their testimony. Because of course, I'm not going to say anything at the beginning, because I'm like, okay, you want to share your testimony, I'm going to let you do it however you think you need to do it. And then some kids would just get up there and freeze. And so then I said, okay. And I would whisper like, hey, we're here to testify of Jesus Christ. So tell me, how do you feel about Jesus? And things like that. And so like, that's how I would help guide them in sharing their testimony, because it's something that they never have done before. And so that's like how I felt like that was okay to do that, because I didn't want to just tell them what to say. Right. Okay. So anyway, I think this is so sweet. And yes, Hannah would have been so crying. She would have just been crying to know that this is what happened to her little boy. Okay, verse 10. And the Lord came and stood and called as at other times, Samuel, Samuel. Then Samuel answered, speak, for thy servant heareth. And the Lord said to Samuel, behold, I will do a thing in Israel, at which both the ears of every one that heareth it shall tingle. In that day I will perform against Eli all things which I have spoken concerning his house. When I begin, I will also make an end. For I have told him that I will judge his house forever for the iniquity which he knoweth, because his sons made themselves vile, and he restrained them not. And therefore I have sworn unto the house of Eli, that the iniquity of Eli's house shall not be purged with sacrifice, nor offering forever. Okay. Not be purged means forgiven. So that's kind of sad. But also imagine giving this much information to a child, even if the child is 17, right? So he must have been a child who has been well educated by Eli to be able to understand all of that. Because usually what happens with revelations that I've received, right, because I can only speak to those, is like he's going to speak to us in a way that we understand, at least so that we can act, right? Not so much that we might make sense of the whole thing, but in a way that we'll be able to act upon that revelation, and in a way that I will be able to act on that revelation based on like my experience, my skills, talents. And so that must have been, so it seems like he was little, but also he could have been older and could have been understanding all these things. Okay, so the Lord then came. Oh, so now we're reading the commentary. So the Lord then came, and that is such an interesting phrase that and to say, which is, and called as at other times Samuel, Samuel. The Lord called as at other times. So the Lord did not change how he was communicating with Samuel. But now that Samuel had gained more understanding and knew how to reply, the message could now be received correctly, right? Could now be, or maybe, received and like collected or whatever, right? What a great reminder that we need to do the work to learn how to hear the voice of the Lord in our lives. Is he calling to us? Are we hearing him? Notice what President Boy K. Packer explained as he taught the youth, how hearing the voice of the Lord is a process that becomes clearer. So you can learn, he says, quote, you can learn now in your youth to be led by the Holy Ghost. As an apostle, I listen now to the same inspiration coming from the same source in the same way that I listened to as a boy. The signal is much clearer now, right? I love that. President Boy K. Packer, Prayers and Answers, October 1979 General Conference. So now that Samuel understood what was happening, he was able to respond. Speak, for thy servant heareth, right? And then the Lord gave Samuel the message, and Samuel understood exactly what was happening. The Lord's message to Samuel was, behold, I will do the thing in Israel, which both the ears of everyone that heareth it shall tingle. Okay, and then the Lord went on to explain that the warnings given to Eli would come to pass, and Samuel was not given the details that the Philistines will attack Israel, kill Eli's sons, and take the Ark of the Covenant. But Samuel was receiving his first experience of having the Lord speak to him and prepare him for something that was coming. As President Ezra Taft Benson taught, prophecy is but history in reverse, a divine disclosure of future events, end quote. Prepare You, October 1973 General Conference. Think of how much this experience will influence Samuel as he becomes the Lord's prophet. Oh, wow. Not only is he learning how to hear the voice of the Lord, but he is learning that the Lord's words unfailingly come to pass. And what a sad thing, because he must have grown up with those boys. And from what you can tell in the scriptures, it seems like they were making bad choices. But who knows what their attitude was towards Samuel. Maybe they really liked him. Maybe they didn't. Either way, they were part of his adopted family, right? And usually, even when we have been, even when we have a good relationship with our family or a bad relationship with our family, we don't ever wish them to die, so it is, you wish them to die, but like jokingly, but not seriously, right? And so anyway, I think that it's just sad that that's like the first revelation that he gets. And verse 15, and Samuel lay until the morning and opened the doors of the house of the Lord. And Samuel feared to show Eli the vision. Of course, I would be totally scared too. Then Eli called Samuel and said, Samuel, my son. And he answered, Here am I. And he said, What is the thing that the Lord hath said unto thee? I pray thee, hide it not from me. God do so to thee, and more also, if thou hide anything from me of all the things that he said unto thee. And he's like, okay. And Samuel told him every whit, and hid nothing from him. And he said, It is the Lord. Let him do what seemeth him good. And isn't that interesting that Samuel confirmed that Eli confirmed that what the Lord had told Samuel must have been correct, because maybe they were also protecting Samuel from all the things that his sons were doing. And so maybe at this junction, he really did, maybe Samuel didn't understand what it all meant, right? I mean, it says that he understood everything, right? So maybe he did understand, but maybe he didn't know why, right? And Eli knew why, but maybe Samuel didn't know why. And so it was still sad for him. And so he was able to confirm to Samuel that, yep, that's the Lord. And because Samuel didn't know certain things, but because it's kind of like, if you don't know things and you don't tell people things, it's like, oh, only the Lord could have told you that because I never told you that and you didn't know, right? Like, for example, President Hinckley talked about what it was like to be in a rave. Has President Hinckley ever been to a rave? 0 times has he ever been to a rave. But when he prophesied and spoke about what happens in raves, he was 100% accurate. And I was like, that's crazy. And so it's like that, right? But that's like how I know that he's a prophet, because he received this revelation from the Lord, because there's no way he would have known this on his own, right? Okay. And Samuel grew, and the Lord was with him, and did let none of his words fall to the ground. And so that means that he really cherished the words that the Lord told him. And all Israel from Dan ever to Beersheba knew that Samuel was established to be a prophet of the Lord. And the Lord appeared again to in Shiloh, for the Lord revealed himself to Samuel in Shiloh by the word of the Lord. Okay, so it's funny because it does say that Samuel lay until morning, meaning that he didn't actually sleep until morning, but he just laid in his bed, right? Not only had he heard the voice of the Lord, but now he received that terrible message about Eli's family. So it was just like super sad to him. So a message Eli already had been warned about, but it is unclear if Samuel knew this, right? That's why I was thinking like he didn't really want to share that with him, because obviously he didn't know. Eli then called Samuel to him, and we see Samuel's courage as he appeared and answered, "Here am I." Samuel proved that he could deliver the Lord's message exactly as it was given, changing nothing, hiding nothing. And even if it was a difficult message to give, Samuel was becoming a prophet that could guide Israel. Because how many times do we get inspiration? We don't really say all the things, right? We're like, ooh, we can't say it like that. And then it's like, we try to figure out how to say it. And then it's like, oh, we should have just said it like that, right? Because the way we said it butchered what he said. So anyways, and then imagine if verse 19 described our youth as they grew up. Samuel certainly would not have been perfect, but he grew. He became the man that the Lord could call to lead Israel during some very difficult years. The phrase, "and the Lord was with him," and did let none of his words fall to the ground, means that Samuel learned to hear the voice of the Lord, and each prophecy that Samuel received came to pass. So all Israel knew that Samuel was established to be a prophet of the Lord. So after hearing the voice of the Lord, Samuel then saw the Lord. And that's what it says, for the Lord revealed himself to Samuel in Shiloh by the word of the Lord. So can you imagine the moment when Samuel told his mom all about this? Hannah would have been like, oh my heck, this is crazy, all the things that are happening. And I would be scared. Anyway, okay. So that is it for Samuel chapter 3. Until Samuel chapter 4, stay strong, warrior.